Hi everyone, this is AJ from Youth Noise. Thanks a lot for attending this webinar. Very excited to show you some of the on-site optimization strategies that we have in the store. If you guys can take a quick second and just let me know in the chat that you can hear me okay, that'd be awesome. And also let me know if you can see my screen correctly. Right now you should be seeing a slide deck that says important on-site optimization tweaks. Okay. All right, sounds like people can hear us. Let's make sure you can see my screen as well, and then we're just going to jump in. All right, fantastic. Let's go ahead and make this full screen. All right, guys, so, I want to save the introductions, just make them real quick, and then we're just going to jump right into it. So just so you have an idea of who I am and what Youth Noise is, see my face here. I'm actually the CEO of a digital marketing agency and the rest of our team here. And what we focus on really are two main digital marketing aspects, which is search engine optimization as well as pay-per-click advertising. And we do both very well and have so for the past several years. And if you actually, Google certain keywords, like let's say you live in New Jersey and you're looking for an AO company in New Jersey. So you type in something like NJSEO. You actually see our company pop up here in the number spot. You can actually see the same thing for a similar keyword in San Francisco. And, there's about 5 or 6 other major cities where you're actually seeing the same thing. So what this has allowed us to do is kind of get an insight into business owners from all over the country in terms of, the different kind of businesses they're in, what they're trying to rank for, whether it's local or nationwide. And we've been able to audit and optimize hundreds of sites over the years, which has given us some pretty good insights in terms of how a website should be structured, what kind of pages, what kind of keywords, what the title, what the URL should look like in order to maximize your rankings. So, I'm just going to simplify everything, break it down, show you guys step by step how to do things. And in the end, we'll save it for questions. We'll save it for even some hot seat site audits if you want me to have a look at your site. So that's a little bit about us. I'd also like to understand a little bit about you as well. So if you can take a quick second and just kind of give me an idea of who we have here in the webinar. Are you guys business owners? Are you, do you have websites that are nationwide or are they local? Are you looking to rank more so in your area, or are you looking more for, nationwide kind of keyword rankings? Okay, and just real quickly put in, whether it's local, nationwide, that'd be awesome. Okay, fantastic. So we have kind of a mix of both, and what I've done with this particular presentation is I've focused a little bit more on local, and the reason is SEO optimization for local versus nationwide is actually quite different. It's actually quite different. And while there are some core tenets that are the same, there's also some major differences. So I don't really want to put the two together. I mean, we could have a local webinar and we could have a nationwide on-site optimization webinar, and 50% of the things I say would be completely different. So just for this particular presentation, we're just going to talk about local. But, the guys that are nationwide, you should still kind of, stick around and pay attention, because when you jump in on the next webinar, you'll see what those differences are, and you'll be able to actually understand why those differences exist. So let's keep moving forward. And what we're going to be talking about here in the next hour or so, like I mentioned earlier, is I want you guys to understand, exactly what SEO is and how it applies to your website. I think sometimes SEO and, getting more visible in search can be kind of intimidating for business owners. And when I first got into it many years ago, I mean, it is intimidating because you're not sure if what you're doing is the right thing, or, you read it somewhere, but you did it and you're not really seeing the right results. So I think it makes a lot of sense to understand what we're doing from a higher level, so you can see what the little steps and the little progresses you take are kind of building towards. So I'm going to show you all that and then open it up to questions and site audits. So before I jump into on-site optimization, I want you guys to have an understanding of a full bird's eye view of SEO. Okay, so when you start with a website and you start with a business, obviously you want to be generating leads for your business, and people generate leads in many different ways. Some, will pick up the phone and do some cold calling. Some will have door-to-door salesmen. A lot of people now rely on the internet as a way of generating leads. And if you've looked at Google before, you can see whenever you search for a keyword, you can see the paid listings here. And they seem to be growing more and more every single day. And you see the paid listings on the side. And then you get the little map pack here and the organic listings here. So the more visible you are in the map pack or the organic listings, the more likely you're going to have really profitable leads without having to pay through the nose for every single click. So our whole goal is to get into this area. And in order to do that, there's 200 different signals that Google's looking at in order to determine who shows up number one versus, who shows up number 2 and 3 and so on. So of those 200 signals, we can really break it down into 4 content buckets. We can break it down into technical aspects of your website, the content on your site, your social media presence, as well as the links coming into your site. And are all of these as important as one another? The answer is no. There is one of these that is most important. But why don't we start with the technical? Technical is kind of the stuff that the web guy looks at when he's building a site for you for the first time. Now there's website platforms like WordPress, and I think everybody really is offering really cheap website solutions, and they usually come with the proper coding and the sitemaps and all that stuff already pre-built in. So for the most part, that's really not as big of a concern anymore. What we're going to be going over today is the content aspects. So we're going to be looking at the keywords, structure your website, how your content's structured in terms of H1s, H2s, and things that you should be aware of, and things that people say are important that are really not that important. After that, we're not going to go over social links today, but because I want you to have a clear understanding of the entire process, I'll just talk about it real quickly. When it comes to social media, when I look at social media in terms of a ranking algorithm benefit, I think of it as maybe 2 to 5% of the ranking. We look at social media, or Google looks at social media as a way to validate a link. So let's say there's 2 websites, okay? And one of them is your competitor and one is yours. Both of you guys make a post. Your post gets, 40 retweets and 20 Facebook shares, and your competitor's post gets none. Well, Google can look at those shares and the traffic generated from those shares as kind of a validation tool to say, well, these guys are making really good content and they're relating to their audience, whereas the other article, maybe that was just like a fluff SEO piece. So in that sense, social is pretty important. But the number one most important thing for SEOs and how you really go from page 4 to page 3 to page 2 to page 1 is the link building. A link building campaign is basically you're trying to get your website linked to from as many other websites as possible, as long as that website is high quality in nature, hopefully niche specific, and hopefully is linking back to you with a kind of a do follow link. The more of those you get over time, those kind of counts as votes. So you can look at a backlink as digital currency for Google. The more of them that you get and the more quality they are, the more likely you are to appear on page 1. So you put these all together and you're starting off with some really good rankings. But if you have a ton of really good links and your content isn't optimized, then you're probably not going to show up for the keywords that you really want to be on for. So I want to give you a couple examples of clients that have reached out to us and what one day's worth of work can do for their business. So here's a medical practice in New Jersey, and the scale that we're looking at here is actually a Google ranking scale. So if it's number 1, it's position 1. Here is position 10. Down here is position 100. So it's kind of like a log scale. Anyway, they reached out to us in this general vicinity, okay? And we spent a few days updating their website. And, you know, after we hit publish and Google started recrawling the page, some of these main keywords, each one of these colors is a different keyword. They were targeting internal medicine terms for various cities. So each one of these lines kind of counts as a keyword. But once the page was published, you can see a drastic improvement in terms of where their rankings were to where they ended up. And a lot of these started flirting with, you know, the top of page 2, jumped onto page 1. And this is actually without any link building. So you can see how powerful, you know, the proper optimization of a website can be just in terms of getting closer or on page. Here's another example of a plumber in New Jersey as well. And this particular plumber wanted to rank for you know, Bedminster and Bridgewater and various terms in his area. So we have a little breakdown here of what the rankings look like before the on-page optimization. And then, you know, literally within 3 or 4 days, once all the changes got indexed, you can see them jump up from position 73 to position 22. In some cases, go from page 5 to the top of page 2. And not only that, but we took some extra steps to understand what the keywords were in their industry that people were really searching for. Like if you're a plumber, obviously you're going to search for plumber. I mean, you're going to try to optimize for plumber, right? But a lot of business owners kind of tend to overlook the niche keywords that can actually drive them some traffic and get them some really easy results just by, you know, spending a couple hours doing some work. So whereas they weren't in the top 100 for something like leak detection, now they're in the top 3. And we've done tons of lead generation for plumbers over the years. And this is a go-to strategy for us to get some easy leads coming in just by targeting these kind of long tail terms. So understanding the long tail terms of your market is also very important. Here's another example, and I think this is the final one. This is a plastic surgeon in a highly competitive city that I blocked out just for his sake. But when we jumped in on the campaign, he was floating around about position 26 for his rhinoplasty city term. The Onsite optimization, since his niche was pretty competitive, it did help boost the keyword ranking up to, I think it was like 19, 18. So this little jump right here was strictly due to website changes. And then after that, the rest of these jumps all the way up to number 1. This is attributable to link building, which I think we should probably save for another webinar altogether. Okay. So, you know, with that being said, I think we're just going to jump right in to what you should be doing in order to understand, you know, more about your niche, what people are searching for when they're looking for your services, and how you can make updates to your site. So I think step number 1 is always identifying the keywords. There's tons of really good tools out there for business owners to understand. You know, obviously they already have an idea of what their keywords are because they are the experts in that niche, but people search for things in all different ways. So understanding what those terms are is going to give you a leg up against your competition. And to focus on that keyword research first, I think the first thing you should be doing is listing out the services that you provide and just putting it down on paper. Okay. And then for each of these services, what we're actually going to do, and I'll do it live just to give you an idea. You should be going to AdWords.com. AdWords.com is a Google keyword planning platform. This is where you actually do like your paid ads for Google and stuff like that. But once you sign up for an account and it's 100% free, you click on tools and you go to keyword planner. There's actually a really handy tool here where you can find out the different types of keywords in your industry and your niche. So let's take an example of, why don't we just stick with plumber? So we can go plumber, plumbing repair, leak detection, just various kind of services that you offer, and we can get ideas. Now, what Google is returning is, if you look at ad groups, it's going to look at kind of a pattern between the words and group them together based on that. So here's all the keywords around leak detection. You have water leak detection, you talk about equipment, you talk about systems and services, you talk about water, you can talk about the home, companies, methods. So you get a sense of what people are actually searching for when looking for a term. And you should be writing down kind of the main keywords that you're seeing over and over again. Now, if there's something like detecting water leaks, and then another keyword says water leaks detecting, just like, the keywords are kind of mixed up, but they contain the same exact words. You can just pick one of them. You don't have to pick all of them. We don't need a giant list of jumbled up kind of keywords. Google's smart enough to figure out what we're talking about. We just want to make sure we're getting as many highly unique keywords onto the page as possible without overdoing it. So once you do a fair bit of deep keyword research, and I would go as deep as humanly possible here. I mean, spend a few hours really uncovering some niches. If you type in leak detection into Google, for example, we could see some of these auto suggests here that give you a pretty good idea of what other people are searching. And if you keep clicking, you keep getting more ideas. Another really good tool I found is LSI graphs. This is a really dandy tool because it does a lot of the work for you. All right. Now, while I just showed you the manual way of doing it, the LSI graph actually does a lot of the heavy lifting. So if we were to type in something like leak detection, I haven't actually tried this before on this keyword. Let's see what happens. It's going to go out there and it's going to find the, oops. All right, well, it's going to go ahead and find some of the examples of the words that we just saw, actually. So we see the equipment rental, we see services, underground, find. So you see a wide list of keywords that you can kind of take back to. All right, that's step one of doing some niche research, understanding what your services are. And then the final step is just sorting them all together. So all your plumbing terms that include plumbing keywords, group them into one topic, group them into one group. All your leak detection terms, you group them into one group. And then you look at those keywords and you say, okay, which one of these are unique enough that I can include them in my content by themselves? Which ones are redundant that I can probably get rid of? And just to give you a kind of a tip when you're deciding on what pages to optimize and stuff like that, if you have something that says water meter leak repair cost, and then you have something that says leak repair cost, you don't need to have leak repair cost and then water meter leak repair cost. Okay, you can try to kind of shave off as many keywords as possible if one keyword is kind of a composite of two different keywords, because the biggest thing about on-site optimization nowadays is not to overdo it. So you want to keep it as lean as possible while giving Google the information it needs to determine your relevancy for a certain term. All right, so if you have questions on that, just feel free to kind of chime in on the chat. I'm keeping an eye on that, but we're going to stop there for the keywords, and we're going to start moving on to what do you do when you actually have a list of keywords? How do you start updating your homepage? Well, I'd say the first step for updating a website is to first understand what Google is looking for when it comes to optimizing a site. So let's say we were to Google a keyword, something like plumber Dallas, all right? Let's look at what shows up on page one. So we have dallasplumbing.com, we have berkeley.com/plumbing, Baker Brothers Plumbing, so on and so forth. So why do these sites show up and the competitor sites don't? Well, there's probably 100 different things we could look at to figure out that answer. But I'm not going to get into that yet. What I want to show you is you have two different options. You can either target your homepage to rank for a keyword like so, or you can target an inner page to rank for a keyword like so. And there's benefits and drawbacks to either one of those. So I want to give you a understanding of what those benefits and drawbacks are. So Let's look at Baker Brothers Plumbing. Their homepage ranks for Plumber Dallas. That's a good thing because they can focus all of their efforts and all of their link building once they do the on-site optimization on the homepage. But it's a drawback as well, because if they rank for Dallas for their homepage and they say, okay, I also want to expand into San Antonio, someone's knee-jerk reaction might be to say, yeah, I'm just going to do some SEO for San Antonio and rank my homepage for there as well. When it comes to Google's relevancy engine, they're really not going to look at Dallas and San Antonio and then rank the same exact page for it. Their relevancy engine doesn't really work like that. They're at the point where they will take a page of a website and they'll give it relevance, usually for a certain area. Sometimes a small cluster of areas if the neighborhood is small enough, but usually it's relevant for one area, one type of keyword. And if you try to introduce San Antonio into ranking for this homepage, it's probably not going to work. What you probably want to do is add a page, something like this, and start targeting it that way, which is a good strategy to do as well. So I want you guys to, when you're thinking about updating your site, I want you to think about, should I be optimizing my homepage for my main, service plus location keyword? If you happen to be a plumber in Rochester Hills, for example, your main keyword is going to be plumber Rochester Hills. So you'd be asking yourself, should I be ranking my homepage for that keyword, or should I be creating an inner page? And it's going to be joesplumbing.com/Rochester-Hills- or -plumber maybe. Which one do you pick? There is no right or wrong answer, really. There is no right or wrong answer. I've been seeing more and more of homepages showing up for specific keyword terms for local businesses. So I'm not against targeting a homepage. I would be against targeting a homepage for multiple cities. I think that would be difficult. So if you wanted to do something like, choose your homepage for your main city and then launch some inner pages for additional cities that you want to target, I think that would make sense. But we're going to go over a few exercises here in a couple seconds to get your thoughts on which ones you would kind of go with. So when it comes to the actual on-site optimization, now that you have the keyword set, well, you need to figure out what the title of your page is going to be, what the URL of the page is going to be, what the keywords on the page is going to be, what the title tags are going to be, all that stuff, right? And when I say something like title, I'm talking about, if we talk about Berkeley's, I believe that this is the title that they have. Berkeley's licensed Dallas Plumbers offers 24 hours, blah, 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 okay? That's the title they have. The URL they have is berkeys.com/plumbing. That's their URL. And we could actually look at some of their page info using a tool here called SEO Quake. It's an extension that you can download from Firefox for free. And you get to have an idea of what their meta description is, what their title tag is, what their actual title tag is, which is right here. So how does their optimization look for this keyword? Let's look at some of these key considerations, and then we can kind of come back to them and have a look at that. So for these guys, what they decided to do is do berkeys.com/plumbing, and they made the title Dallas Plumbers, and then they added some branding as well. And that was enough to get them into the top 5 or so spots for Dallas, which is great. Now, if I was doing this optimization and I was working on a site that wasn't, ranking on page 1 yet, and it didn't have much authority, I would actually approach this URL differently. And I'll tell you why in a second. So if you have a question in terms of, how should a URL be structured? Well, that answer really depends on usually what your domain name is. So here's an example. And let's say that you're a plumber in Los Angeles. Okay, the domain you bought is joesplumbers.com. And the page that targets Los Angeles can either be the home page or the inner page, all right? which of these would be best if you chose to target an inner page for Los Angeles? I'd like to hear some guesses in terms of which one you guys think that joesplumbers.com should elect to do. Should it be number one, where it's the keyword dash the city? Should he leave the keyword out of the page URL and just stick with Los Angeles? Or should he kind of try to make an organized site here that says joesplumbers.com /locations /Los Angeles? Which one do you think he should do to get the easiest amount of rankings? Yep. In my situation, what I would suggest doing is actually joesplumbers.com /Los Angeles. And I'll tell you why. With Google's new algorithm, their Penguin and Panda algorithms, they're really serious about over-optimization. SEO is not a secret anymore. A lot of people know how to do SEO, and a lot of people know how to abuse the algorithm. And because of that, Google's kind of had to, play cat and mouse with SEOs in the past, to the point where now they say that if you're considered over-optimizing your URLs or getting too aggressive with your SEO optimization, that can actually hinder your site. So what about position or number one, the choice number one would be potential for over-optimization? Well, if you look at joesplumbers.com, the word plumbers is already in the domain. And so it's already getting some relevance for the term plumbers. Okay. Now, if we add it again in the URL, chances are it's probably still going to be fine. But when it comes to actually kind of powering up the site and building links and doing some promotions, there's more of a risk for over-optimization if you're employing this kind of URL. But if you employ a rule where you say, I just want my main service to show up once in the URL, and I just want my location to show up once in the URL, then it really doesn't matter in what order that it shows up. So that's why I would go with this term. And the reason why I wouldn't do number three, usually when you're doing a hierarchy like this and you bury a Los Angeles page kind of 2 levels deep on a site, it actually ends up making it tougher to rank this page, just because, the closer your page is to the domain, the easier it is to rank in Google. So if you're adding kind of a middle page here, like this / counts for different pages. So if you're adding a middle page here, it just makes it harder to rank, and it's not necessary for a site to be doing something like that. All right, here's another example, and I want your guys' thoughts on which one you would choose if your company name was robincompany.com. Would you choose number one, where the page URL that you're targeting is Plumber Los Angeles? Would you just choose number two, where it's Los Angeles, or number three? Obviously, I'm not a fan of number three. So which one would you choose in this case? Yep, exactly. So the reason why we'd be going with number one here is because plumber is not in the domain name. So it's our job to be optimizing the URLs for the target term. And if the term isn't in the domain, then by all means, we should be adding it there. So that's kind of a pretty basic introduction of what you should be doing for your pages. It's actually pretty simple when you think about it. There's so many different ways to do things in terms of SEO optimization. And every time I see a client that hasn't really had an SEO take a look at a site, I see the same things over and over again, where the homepage really doesn't contain the keyword anywhere on the page, or if they have inner pages, it doesn't really include anything about the location. So it makes it that much harder for Google to identify what you're trying to rank for. So if you do these little quick steps, it makes it a lot easier in terms of getting better rankings, getting more value from the links that you build and the press that you obtain. So this is definitely kind of a really good introduction on how you should be structuring your site. And if you do this and you're located in kind of a smaller city and you're not in the most competitive niche and your website has a little bit of age to it, it's possible that with just these changes, your website could go to page 1. And then if you've identified a decent amount of kind of longer tail keywords or, more niche services that you provide, if you create specific pages for those and you optimize it for the cities as well, you could be on the top of page 1 for something like that. And that could generate you, a couple extra leads a month, which is something you weren't getting earlier. So that's kind of the value of doing on-site optimization the right way. And then when it comes to, the next steps, when you try to kind of take what you've done in terms of on-site optimization and really start building the authority of your site, you can do it yourself. You can start building these links yourself. I mean, there's websites right now like WordPress.com and Tumblr and Jimdo, all these different Web 2.0 properties. And I actually have a list of 400 of these sites that allow you to create your own accounts on them. If you go out there and you start building, your branded properties on those sites, you're building that stuff on high quality websites, and you can link back to your site freely. So that's a great way to start building up some of your other authority when I talked about actually building up some incoming links. And then, Google is basically a psychology engine just as much as it is going out there and trying to rank your site. They have a team of engineers there that love messing with SEOs, and we've seen in testing, and there's been tons of reports about stuff like this where if you do something on your site, Google's algorithm will do the exact opposite of what you expect, and it'll stay that way for a couple months, and then suddenly that anti-Google effect will go away and the true result happens. It's just Google kind of testing SEOs and making sure that changes are being made are not for SEO, but they're being made, for the site and for the user and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to stop there. I'm hoping to see some questions coming in, or if somebody wants me to kind of analyze their site live and, give you some tips, then you could paste in your website and you could paste in one of your main keywords. And I could kind of give you guys a rundown on what I would do for your site in terms of if I suggest you ranking for your inner page or your home page, or how I think you should update your site. So I'm going to leave that kind of stuff up to you guys. All right, so I got one here for Rock Bottom Rentals. Why don't we jump in on that one first, and then we'll get to NC. All right, so we have Rock Bottom Rentals. Okay, for Rock Bottom Rentals, what is the main keyword? Type it in the chat box. I'm not seeing the keyword in the meta description. And for Lean Designs and Aspects Consulting, just type in yours as well. I see both of those, so I'd be interested in looking at those too. So we're talking about walkies, wireless phones, wireless internet. Basic. Okay, what kind of consulting do you do? We do iPhone repairs here. Looks like we got a bunch of different stuff here. My next question for Rock Bottom Rentals would be, are you nationwide or are you local? Just and I'm going to kind of come back to that one. Let's move on to Aspects Consulting. So you're nationwide with 5 key cities, and some of your main keywords include walkie-talkies, wireless phones, phone systems. So you're basically providing rentals for stuff like wireless phones and phone systems. Is that correct? All right. Let's see what kind of pages you have indexed on your site. We have 96 pages indexed in Google. Wireless internet rentals. So this would be your wireless internet rentals page. And how are your rankings doing right now? Or how is your organic traffic right now? Okay, so I'm seeing a lot of tag and category pages here. All right, so this leads me to understand that you probably have about 10 important pages on your site. And none of these are optimized or local. Okay, so let's say that we did, oops, not that. Let's say we did wireless internet rentals or wireless phone rentals. Now, I don't know the volume of this keyword, but I'm going to assume that it's a highly searched keyword, or somewhat highly searched, and I'm going to assume that people are searching for it at the local level. So if people are searching something like wireless internet rentals Los Angeles, for example, what kind of results are we getting? We're getting cell phone rentals in Los Angeles, iPad rentals, nationwide sites. We're getting some home pages. All right, cool. So we're getting a bunch of home pages for local companies. Now, if you see what we did with our site, when you go to youthnoise.com, our main site actually is not optimized for any specific keyword. It's just talking about our brand and our services and what we do. And we did that for a reason, because it's tougher for us to take on a major city like Los Angeles for the homepage, and then go and target Chicago for an inner page. It's just not as ideal as saying, okay, I'm going to create a page for Los Angeles, I'm going to create a page for Philadelphia, so on and so forth. So for something like Rock Bottom Rentals, since you have 6 major cities and I think 4 or 5 different products here, I would actually be creating something like this. I would do Los Angeles, and then we could either do wireless internet rentals, something as simple as that. And then we'd create a page for each city and product combination. We could do that, or we could also try to make it a little bit more organized and do rentals. So we could do a main city subpage for each one of the cities you target, and then another subpage for each service you offer in that city. If you ask for my preference, I'd be doing something like this. It's a little bit uglier, but I've seen it rank better versus trying to make a pretty URL. I've seen that rank better. So that's what I would suggest. And in the title, I would have something like, wireless internet rentals in Los Angeles. Find 4 or 5 different kind of LSI keywords that are similar but not the same, and I'd sprinkle it into the content. And then I would link to those pages from either the menu section or create like a nice little footer section and link to them there, so that we make sure that those pages are getting a good amount of power. So that's how I would approach that. Let's move on to another one here. I think I was doing Aspects Consulting next, so let's look at that. I'll check the notes here. You got it, Jessica. Let's see. All right. So Allied Consulting, you are a consultant. You do individual coupling, group counseling, parent counseling. Okay, awesome. You're located in Rochester. Let's see what kind of pages you have right now. So you have 14 pages indexed in Google. You have your blog, a frequently asked questions, services, counselor, payment map, couples. Okay. See, I think this is one of those examples where if you did do some website tweaks, you'd actually end up getting a lot better rankings if you're not ranking pretty well right now. So how many different services or how many different cities would you be targeting? I'd assume it's, Rochester and maybe like a 10, 15 mile radius possibly. So in your case, okay, so you're serving Rochester and the metropolitan Detroit area. Yep, so I would probably optimize the homepage for something like counseling Rochester. I would make sure that it's somewhere here in the URL. I would also check out your title. It says Aspects Counseling Rochester MI. Okay, so you have the word counseling in there, and you've got professional counseling in there. For the different types of counseling you're doing, I'd probably include those keywords here as well, and I'd fill out this meta description a little bit more to say something like Aspects Counseling offers, individual, couples, and parental counseling in and around the Rochester, Michigan area. So if we were optimizing the homepage for that, then we'd have to make a decision to say, okay, do we want an individual page for each one of these different pages and cities? So do we want a individual counseling Rochester page and a couples counseling Rochester page and a group counseling Rochester page? Or can we optimize the homepage for each one of those and just hope for the best? So there's no right answer here. We'd have to actually look at the competition, see who's ranking, see what kind of pages they're ranking with. And if Google is returning every keyword combination with the same exact homepage, then chances are you can just target it with the same homepage. So let's look at couples counseling. We have Psychology Today, North Oakland Counseling, Health Grades, Counseling. Okay. So we have couples counseling coming up with a bunch of homepages. Now let's do what was that? Let's try the same thing with group counseling and see what kind of keywords pop up. So we have group counseling, Psychology Today. You notice this one comes up as therapist, Psychology Today. This one comes up as group Psychology Today, groups, therapist, North Oakland Counseling, Great Lakes Psychology Group, Counseling Center for Women. And I think we saw the same one, or no? North Oakland Counseling. And North Oakland Counseling. Yeah, so it looks like Google's kind of, giving some leeway in terms of targeting multiple terms on the same page. So I would be perfectly comfortable with the same. And I'd be perfectly comfortable with, you optimizing your homepage for that term. And then jumping forward to saying if you wanted to bring on Detroit as well, I would probably launch a page like this, Detroit. Since you already have counseling inside the domain name, if you added a Detroit page, listed in the counseling, couples, groups, all into one section, and then added a little link to that Detroit page in the footer with the anchor text, Detroit Counseling, I think that would help out a lot in terms of some on-site optimization. Let me know if that makes sense. All right, and I think we only have about 15 minutes here, so let's move on to the next one. Let's have a look at lean designs. So lean designs is actually a subdomain. You're welcome. It's a subdomain and it's listed on a website that's decoratingden.com. Now, is decoratingden.com kind of one of those websites where you build your own website on top of it? Or are you a dealer for Decorating Den? Franchisee. Okay, got it. All right, awesome. So it actually helps a lot, the fact that you're a franchisee for a website like this, because this website's already pretty established. So if you look at Decorating Den, you can see some of the metrics here, like this DA metric. The value says 43. This is a value from 1 to 100. The higher your domain authority, usually the easier it is to rank for your keywords. And there is a separation between this website and your website. Whenever you put something on what they call a subdomain, it's actually considered a different website in Google's eyes, but it does maintain some connection to the parent domain. So you get a little bit of boost because you're on this authoritative site, but you still have to build up this subdomain of yours to really, break that juice through. So I think you listed out your keywords here. Let me find them. Interior decorating, interior design, furniture, window treatment. Awesome. All right. And how are your rankings currently doing for your local area? Let me know how they're looking. In the meantime, I'll keep looking around. Okay. And just to give you guys a quick tip, if you go to ProRankTracker.com, it's a completely free keyword tracking tool. You go here, you click on plans and pricing, and you can actually create a 100% free account on this. And basically what it does is every day it's gonna compare your website to the keywords you put in, and it'll tell you what position you rank in Google on a daily basis. So you can actually put in your website information today, work on updating your site over the next week or so, and then you can actually see in real time what the increase in rankings is going to be. So I recommend everyone kind of go to ProRankTracker.com and check that out. Let's see if we could, let's pick on interior decorating as the main keyword, okay? And if you are located in, I'm not sure where you're located. Oh, Rochester. Okay. So if you're located in Rochester Hills, that means one of our main keywords would be interior decorator. Let's say it's interior decorator, Rochester Hills. This may not be your main keyword, but for the sake of argument, let's do that. What are we seeing so far? We're seeing these massive sites that have pages for every city in the country. Seeing a bunch of those, Angie's List. Here's a local business. So this is one of your competitors. We're seeing a bunch of Yelps and Yellow Pages. So here's another local business. Here's another one. I don't want you guys to get scared off by these big nationwide sites that pop up. These are just ranking there because they have so much domain authority, which is the value I just went over. Usually these guys have like domain authorities of 80, 70, 90. So they just rank naturally just because no one's really doing SEO for these terms. But if you do SEO for these terms, you can tend to outrank them pretty quickly. So let's look at some of your competitors here. All right, so their homepage is ranking, and the word Rochester Hills is actually in one of the testimonials, and that's about it. So you could see that if you take the steps to optimize a site for keywords like this, especially if a relatively under-optimized site like this is ranking for keywords, chances are you have a pretty good opportunity to kind of match and exceed them. So for you, I would I'll definitely get the word Rochester Hills onto your front page somewhere, and ideally you'd even say, you know, interior decorator in Rochester Hills, best interior decorator, Rochester Hills house to like the closer they are, the closer they are to each other, the better. And then that should help you a lot. I don't know if the web allows you to make more. I assume it does with like blogging capabilities and all that. But I would see how the rankings, and then if you wanted to target some sister neighborhoods, I would just create a new page and do something like interior design Detroit or whatever you were looking to target. So that's probably what I'd recommend there. And I think we have time for one more. I'll try to squeeze in two more if I can. Let's look at this one next. Paul, are you still there? We can jump into your website next. All right, so Allied Insurance Managers, you do business insurance, auto insurance, health insurance. Okay, awesome. So there's a huge site here. Let's look at how many pages there are. 397 pages. Let's look at the different types of URLs. So we have a lot of different insurance related terms and some nice long tails. Is this a local or a nationwide site? This is local. Okay. So what's the target area? Okay, here we go. It's Rochester Hills. All right. Okay, you're in Chicago, but the company is in Rochester Hills. Are we talking about the same site here? Okay, awesome. All right. So we obviously need some just for the sake of argument, we obviously need a lot more local optimization if we are talking about a local site here. And since we're located in Chester Hills, we're going to say we want to find everybody in a 20-mile radius that wants, a business insurance quote or home insurance quote. Obviously, nationwide for insurance terms is some of the most competitive stuff you're going to find in SEO. And there's people with budgets of tens and $20,000 and $30,000 a month and just SEO and content creation that you're competing with. So it is always a good idea to start local, dominate that as much as possible, or looking forward to nationwide. And if you did want to start local, usually these mini niches, they come with their own set of competition. So it'd be very difficult for you to put auto insurance and home insurance onto the same page, especially something like boat insurance onto the same page. So we're talking about a pretty big optimization strategy where we'd probably be looking at something like, a Rochester Hills probably something like Rochester Hills Auto Insurance, and then you'd find the different LSIs like companies, services, providers, quotes, what have you. You could probably also just target Michigan, because I think a lot of people target the Michigan location. But for something like this, it would take me longer than a couple minutes to figure out the best way to approach it, because there's so many different considerations you want to be aware of. But I definitely would look at creating some inner pages and targeting locally, because you guys do have some decent authority built up already, and you've possibly had this site up for a few years now. You've got some location authority built up. So there's no reason why, if some optimization strategies did take place, that you wouldn't see kind of a bump just like this, because I can guarantee your competitors aren't optimizing either. So I could see something like that really improving where your rankings currently are. And I think we have time for one more. So let's look at Graphios. All right, so what is Graphios about? We're talking about car wraps, commercial vehicle wraps, graphics installations. Do you also do like car tinting and stuff like that, or not really? Poster printing. Okay, so it's all about wraps, prints, decals. Got it. So this reminds me of a client I actually currently have. And that's why I mentioned tint shop, because he's primarily a tint shop, but he also does a lot of car wraps. So what we ended up doing for him, if you see the wraps here, is he lived in kind of a not that populated city. It was Denver, North Carolina. So when we went to work doing SEO for him, and you can see we actually created some inner pages here, just like the way I talked to you guys about, and we put it in the footer. All of these pages ranked pretty easily. But the problem with that is, since the population is kind of low, he was still, he was getting more calls, but his calls weren't really blowing up. So what we decided to do with him is just try to add as many locations as possible. So we added a window tinting page for, the 50 miles, a 50-mile radius of his location. And because we built up the authority of site and the relevance of his site for, one or two locations, ranking the rest of the locations kind of became child's play. So now he's actually visible for 30 or 40 different cities, popping up in number one spot. So I think I'd probably suggest kind of a similar approach to what you're doing, where, let's see where you're located. So you're in Elk Grove, all right. I would probably do, since you have so many different types of services, I would probably even stay away from, just targeting Elk Grove on the homepage. I think since you already have a decent domain authority built up, I would do something as simple as and you might already rank pretty well for this term because you have some authority. But chances are you don't rank well for, the 50 cities around you. So if you did want to start generating some traffic and stuff like that, I'd start pumping out some pages for each service and city combination. That would probably be my go-to strategy there. And each of these pages, it needs the city inside the title tag, needs unique content. So we don't want to just abuse the fact that we can pump out as many pages as possible and kind of copy paste and use the same text except for the cities. We do want to try to add as much unique value to the search engines as possible. So we've kind of come up on the finish of our hour. I think that's all the site audits that were requested, but if I missed anybody, just follow up via email and I'll do a personal audit for you guys. But I think that's it for now. And I had a lot of fun doing this. I think one of the reasons why we're having this webinar is, people will reach out to us for SEO services, but sometimes they're just not ready for a professional agency to help take their websites to the next level. And they don't necessarily have the insights and the education to kind of get them there themselves. So this is our attempt to bridge the gap in terms of, showing people ways that they can generate some pretty simple rankings, start making some money through their websites and start preparing their business to kind of take that next step to really start, marketing hardcore online. So, hopefully you guys got some value out of this. If you have any follow-up questions, by all means, just shoot me an email. It's aj@youthnoise.com. And if you also want to just kind of do some more website audits, you can feel free to click on the SEO audit button on our website. And that should get you some decent information in terms of how your URL structure, your title structures, and things like that look. I wouldn't take too much stock in terms of some of the other stuff that it goes over, just because it does a lot of automated stuff that's not important. But just focus on the stuff that I talked about and you'll do pretty well. So thanks a lot, guys. I'm going to probably do these webinars every 2 weeks or so. So I'll send you guys an email for the next webinar. We'll probably talk about nationwide optimization or link building. And I'm going to send out a survey to get an idea of what you guys thought. and what you'd like to see from future webinars. All right, so thanks a lot, guys.